Want to animate your logo but don't know which software to use? In this video, we'll look at 10 of the best logo animation tools, from simple online options like Canva and Renderforest to powerful software like Blender and Rive. Let's get started. If you want to animate your logo quickly without learning complicated animation software, Canva is probably the easiest option on this list. You can simply upload your existing logo, place it on a canvas, and use Canva's built-in animation effects to create things like fades, slides, pops, and other simple logo reveals. You can also combine your logo with text, music, and other elements to create a complete intro for your YouTube videos, social media posts, or website. The biggest advantage here is simplicity. You don't need to understand keyframes, timelines, or complicated animation tools. Most of the work can be done with a few clicks. Of course, that simplicity also means you don't get the same level of control you'd have with software like Blender or Rive. But if you just need a clean and simple animated logo without spending hours learning the software, Canva is an excellent place to start. If Canva feels a little too basic and you want something more focused on creating polished logo reveals, Renderforest is a great next step. Canva keeps things simple, but Renderforest takes a more template-driven approach to logo animation. Instead of creating the animation from scratch, you can choose from a huge collection of ready-made logo reveal templates. Upload your logo, and then customize things like the colors, text, tagline, and music. There are styles for almost every kind of brand, from clean and minimal animations to 3D, particle, glitch, and cinematic logo reveals. The biggest advantage is how quickly you can get a professional-looking result. You don't need to understand keyframes or complex animation techniques. You basically choose a style, customize it to match your brand, and render the final animation. The downside is that you're working within the templates available on the platform, so you don't have the same creative freedom you'd get with software like Blender or Synfig Studio. And some of the more advanced templates are premium. Once you move away from ready-made templates, you'll need something that gives you more control over the animation itself. That's where Kdenlive comes in. Kdenlive is primarily a video editor, but it gives you all the basic tools you need to create custom logo animations. You can animate the position, size, rotation, and opacity of your logo using keyframes, allowing you to create effects like zooms, spins, slides, and smooth reveals. You can also combine your logo with masks, effects, transitions, and other elements to create a complete animated intro rather than just a simple logo reveal. And because Kdenlive is a full video editor, you can finish the entire project without switching to another program. The downside is that, unlike Canva or Renderforest, you won't find a library of ready-made logo reveal templates. You'll have to build the animation yourself, which means there's a little more of a learning curve. If you want more control over your logo animation without getting into complicated 3D software, then Cavalary is definitely worth checking out. Cavalary is a motion design and 2D animation tool, which makes it particularly useful for creating clean and professional logo animations. You can animate individual parts of a logo, move text and shapes, create smooth reveals, and build more customized animations instead of relying entirely on ready-made templates. The software uses a timeline and keyframes, so you can control things like position, scale, rotation, and opacity. This makes it possible to create everything from a simple logo entrance to more complex animations where different elements of the logo come together on screen. There is a bit of a learning curve compared to tools like Canva, but if you want more creative control over your logo animation while still working mainly in 2D, Cavalry is a very capable option. Drawing every frame yourself isn't exactly the fastest way to animate a logo. Synfig Studio solves that problem with keyframe-based animation. Instead of creating each frame manually, Synfig uses keyframes and automatic tweening to generate the movement between them. So you can set the starting and ending positions of your logo, and the software creates the motion in between. This makes it much easier to create effects like smooth zooms, rotations, fades, and logo reveals. You also get tools like a bone system for character-style animation, along with layers, gradients, filters, and other effects that give you much more control over the final result. The downside is that Synfig has a steeper learning curve. The interface can take some time to understand, especially if you're completely new to animation. If you've used tools like Canva but want something specifically built around motion design, Jitter is a much more interesting option. Jitter is a web-based motion design tool that lets you create animations directly in your browser. You can start with one of its ready-made logo templates, replace the logo with your own, and then customize the colors, effects, fonts, and timing to match your brand. But what makes Jitter more interesting is that you're not limited to templates. You can create your own animations using its timeline and custom animation tools, including effects like scaling, rotation, movement, blur, and even morphing between shapes. It's also particularly useful if you're creating motion graphics for social media, websites, presentations, or other digital content, because you can export your animations in formats like video, GIF, and Lottie. Lottie Creator is particularly interesting if your logo is going to live on a website or inside an app. It's a browser-based animation editor built specifically around the Lottie format, so you can create vector animations using shapes, paths, text, keyframes, and a timeline, without installing any software. For logo animation, you can import your logo as an SVG and animate things like its position, scale, rotation, opacity, or even reveal individual paths. It also includes easing controls and animation presets, giving you much more control over the movement than simple, template-based tools. And the biggest advantage is what you can do with the finished animation. You can export it as Lottie or .lottie for use on websites and apps, as well as formats like GIF and MP4 when you need a regular video. The downside is that it's more focused on digital and interactive motion than traditional video animation, so it may be overkill if you simply want a short logo reveal for YouTube. Lottie is great for web and app animation, but Rive takes the idea of interactive graphics even further. Rive is designed for creating interactive animations, which means your logo can actually respond to things like clicks, taps, or mouse movement. You can create the animation using its timeline and then use state machines to control how different animations play and transition between each other. For example, you could have your logo change when someone hovers over it on a website, or create different animations for different states of an app. Rive even has a dedicated use case for animated logos and supports exporting interactive graphics for websites, apps, and game engines. The biggest advantage here is interactivity. Instead of exporting a video and simply playing it from start to finish, you can actually make the logo behave like part of the interface. Of course, that also makes Rive more complicated than tools like Canva or Renderforest. If all you need is a 5-second logo reveal for YouTube, you're probably better off with something simpler. Now we're moving into much more advanced tools. Natron isn't really a logo animation tool at all. It's a compositing and VFX application. Natron is primarily a node-based compositing and VFX software, but it can also be used to animate and enhance logos. You can use keyframes to control parameters over time, while its tracking, rotoscoping, masking, and effects tools give you much more freedom to build complex logo reveals. For example, you could have your logo appear through a particle effect, interact with footage, or combine it with lighting, glows, and other visual effects. Its node-based workflow also makes it easier to build complex effects by connecting different processing steps together. But there's a catch. Natron isn't designed to be a simple logo animation tool, so the learning curve is considerably higher than something like Canva or Jitter. You'll need to understand compositing and the node-based workflow to get the most out of it. And finally, we have Blender, the most powerful tool on this list if you want complete control over your logo animation. Unlike template-based tools, Blender lets you build your animation completely from scratch. You can create custom logo animations with complete creative freedom. Animate individual elements, add lighting and camera movements, and create effects like reflections, particles, smoke, and other visual effects. Blender also includes Grease Pencil, which lets you combine different animation styles within a 3D environment. This makes Blender particularly useful if you want something more than a simple logo reveal. For example, you could have your logo form from particles, turn into a 3D object, interact with a 3D environment, or create a cinematic intro around it. Of course, all that flexibility comes with a learning curve. Blender can feel overwhelming when you first open it, especially if you're only looking to create a 5-second logo animation. But if you're willing to spend the time learning it, Blender gives you almost unlimited creative freedom, and that's why I'd recommend it to anyone who wants to take their logo animations to the next level. So those were 10 tools you can use to create your own logo animations. Let me know in the comments which one you're planning to try, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe.